Hi there. The strategy we're going to talk about now, or the skill rather, is going to be summarizing text. In particular, summarizing text when we're reading fiction. There is a difference between summarizing text when it is something that is a fictional, like a story, and then when we're summarizing things like articles or passages in a textbook or things like that. So keep in mind throughout this lesson that what we're working on right now is how to effectively summarize fiction. So let's learn about it. When you summarize a passage, you express its overall meaning as concisely as possible. There are several strategies you can use to summarize a work of fiction. In some cases, you can break a passage into smaller sections, determine the main idea of each, and then identify a connection between these sections. For longer works of fiction, like the novel we're reading, it might be easier to identify the main characters, action, conflict, and resolution, and then write one or two sentences explaining how these different elements are connected in a story. I want to take a moment to make sure that we're understanding what the word concisely means. Okay? When something is concise, it means that we're getting our point across and getting all the important things in as little words as possible. So basically, if you really want to define the word summary, it's all the important information without any of the extra fluffy stuff. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a practice here. Right here we have a passage called The Bat, the Birds, and the Beasts by Aesop, one of Aesop's fables. So we're going to read through that, and then we're going to check out what a summary of this little passage might look like. We're going to take a look at the different elements that are contained in that summary. A great battle was about to happen between the birds and the beasts. The bat did not know which side to join. When the birds invited the bat to join them, he declined, claiming he was a beast. When the beasts asked the bat to join them, he declined, claiming that he was a bird. Peace was made between the birds and the beasts before a battle could happen. Each group had a party to celebrate. When the bat tried to enter a party, he was turned away because he was not part of that group. So a summary that we have written here is, the bat does not choose sides before a battle. After peace is declared, neither group lets the bat join in the celebration. So what are some of the elements in this summary? We have what the characters are and the action that character took. So the bat didn't choose sides before the battle. The conflict, a battle is about to occur. And the resolution, peace is made, but each group rejects the bat when he tries to celebrate with them. So in a fiction summary, we want to make sure that we have the characters, what the main thing the characters do. We want to make sure we have the conflict, and we want to make sure that we have the resolution. One common mistake that students make when writing summaries is they think they're not supposed to give away the ending. It's not like a trailer or a preview or a book talk where you're trying to get people to read the book and you don't want to give away the ending. If you are asked to write a summary, it does include the end of the story. So let's take a look at an excerpt from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. And as you are reading, you'll have to stop and answer some questions. So here's the first question you'll have to answer. What do the first two paragraphs tell you about Huckleberry Finn? So as I'm reading, make some mental notes of how you would describe him based on what I read. Huckleberry Finn, the juvenile outlaw of the town, was dreaded by all the mothers of the town because he was idle and lawless and vulgar and bad, and because all their children admired him so and wished to be like him. Tom Sawyer was like the rest of the respectable boys in that he envied Huckleberry as a flamboyant outcast and was under strict orders not to play with him. So, of course, he played with him every time he got a chance. Huckleberry was always dressed in the cast-off clothes of full-grown men, and they were fluttering with rags. His hat was a vast ruin with a wide crescent cut out of its brim, and his coat, when he wore one, hung nearly to his heels. Only one suspender supported his pants. The seat of the pants hung low, and the fringed legs dragged in the dirt when not rolled up. Huckleberry came and went at his own free will. He slept on doorsteps in fine weather and in empty sheds in wet. He did not have to go to school or call any being master or obey anybody. He could go fishing or swimming when and where he chose, and stay as long as it suited him. Nobody forbade him to fight. He could sit up as late as he pleased. He was always the first boy that went barefoot in the spring and the last to wear shoes in the fall. He never had to wash nor put on clean clothes. In a word, everything that goes to make life precious, that boy had. So thought every harassed, hampered, respectable boy in St. Petersburg. When Huck came under the protection of the widow Douglas, she introduced him into society, and his sufferings were almost more than he could bear. The widow's servants kept him clean and neat, and they begged him nightly in... All right, so your next couple questions you're going to answer, what information are you given in the last two paragraphs, and then what information would you not include in a summary? When Huck came under the protection of the widow Douglas, she introduced him to society, and his sufferings were almost more than he could bear. The widow's servants kept him clean and neat, and they bedded him nightly in sheets that had not one little spot or stain. He had to eat with a knife and fork. He had to use napkin, cup, and plate. He had to read books. He had to talk properly. Wherever he turned, the bars and shackles of civilization shut him in and bound him hand and foot. He bravely bore his miseries 3 weeks, and then one day turned up missing. For 48 hours the widow hunted for him everywhere. Early the third morning, Tom Sawyer wisely went poking behind the abandoned slaughterhouse, where he found the refugee. Huck had slept there. He had just breakfasted upon some stolen food, and was lying now in comfort. He was unkempt, uncombed, and clad in the same old ruin of rags from the days when he was free and happy. Tom told him the trouble he had been causing, and in the end convinced him to go home. So what information are you given in the last two paragraphs? And then what information would you not include in a summary? So to remind you, a summary is an expression of the overall meaning of a passage, and we're going to try to get that meaning across as concisely as possible, meaning we're going to include everything that's important, but we're going to leave out any of that extra fluff. And then remember again that this is only as it applies to fiction, these strategies. So for shorter pieces, sometimes you can break the passage apart into smaller sections. Well, you'd find the main idea of each section, and then maybe make a little transition connection between them. For longer works of fiction, like books, it might be easier to identify what the main characters are. Maybe that rising action, the conflict, and then the resolution, and then write 1 or 2 sentences explaining how these different elements are connected in a story.